Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome. I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I'm going to be talking about Walt Whitman's book, Leaves of Grass. It's a classic book. This is the 1855 edition, and if you read the back cover, it basically says, "A child says, 'What is grass?' fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition out of hopeful green stuff woven. Or I guess it is the handkerchief of the Lord, a scented gift and remembrance designedly dropped, bearing the owner's name some way in the corners that we may see and remark and say, whose? Or I guess the grass itself is a child, the produced babe of the vegetation, and now it seems to be the beautiful uncut hair of graves." So that is what Walt Whitman was thinking about in his version, Leaves of Grass. And I always say I am such a big fan of Walt Whitman as a writer and a poet, and as a person. He was not afraid to be who he was. He lived in a time where people judged him based on his companions, which were usually young men of rightful age. But back then, it was they thought it was a disease. They thought homosexuality was a disease. They called it a perversion. So people would judge this man not on what he wrote, but on how he lived his life. And, there's just, when you think about that and you think about the technology today, if he was alive today, he may have, there's a lot of anti-LGBTQ people, but people are also more open and free, and I think that's why sometimes this book ends up on banned book lists. I have read Leaves of Grass so many times, and I also have a book that has his complete works, which is just amazing. He self-published Leaves of Grass in 1855, and he rocked the literary world and forever changed the course of poetry. He continued to revise and expand his poems, but none matched the raw power and immediacy of his first edition of Leaves of Grass. When I couldn't, I read anything that I can get my hands on, and I write a review. And I wrote a review on Leaves of Grass now. So I'll read the review, and then I'm going to read just a small excerpt of one of his, I'll say, songs in Leaves of Grass. I gave him 5 stars. Heck, I could give him 10 stars if I wanted to, but they don't go up that high. Whitman is a genius. If you have the chance to read Whitman, do it. He was a man well before his time. He was always true to himself. His words painted a picture of how he saw the world. From love to nature to majesty, he wrote about the world. He wasn't afraid to write and write about feelings, worth the second and third read, and continue on. Keep this in your reading list indefinitely. Whitman is definitely my favorite, and I love his poetry and the fact that he wasn't afraid to be himself. His work always inspires me. So if you love reading the classics, this is a great book to start with. Introduce yourself to Walt Whitman. And yes, this book has been on many of the banned and burned book list. His books have been burned since he first published his works, and just because they were about his feelings and his lovers. And recently I got an email from an author who she noticed that I was a Whitman fan, and she let me know that she visited his grave, and she is an artist. So the story she shared with me, it touched my heart and it resonated with me. I mean, if I could do that, I would. And it's just something about having that peacefulness. Um, so, um, and having a legacy that continues on. I mean, he wrote these in the 1800s, and here we are almost, or we're in 2024. So it's the words, your words can continue on as long as you write them down and share them with people. Don't just put it in a drawer to collect dust. So one of the songs I'm going to read from In Leaves of Grass is Songs of the Answerer. A young man came to me with a message from his brother. How should the young man know whether and when of his brother? Tell him to send me the signs. And I stood before the young man face to face, and took his right hand in my left hand, and his left hand with my right hand. And I answered for his brother and for men, and I answered for the poet and sent these signs. Him I'll wait for, him I'll yield up to. His word is decisive and final. Him they accept, in lave, in perceived, in him perceive themselves amid light. Him they immerse, and he immerses them. Beautiful women, the haughtiest, nations, laws, landscape, people, and animals, the profound earth and its attributes, and the unique ocean, all enjoyments and prosperities and money, and whatever money will buy, the best farms, others toiling and planting, and he will unavoidably reaps, the noblest and costliest cities, others grading and building, and he domiciles there. Nothing for anyone but what is for him, near and far are for him. The ships in the offing, the perpetual shows and marches on land, are for him if they are for anybody. He puts things in their attitude. He puts today out of himself with plasticity and love. He places his own city, times, reminiscence, parents, brothers and sisters, associations, employment, and politics, so that the rest never shame them afterward, nor assume to command them. He is the answerer. What can be answered, he answers, and what cannot be answered, he shows how it cannot be answered. A man is a summons and challenge. It is vain to skulk. Do you hear that mocking and laughter? Do you hear that ironical echoes? Books, friendships, philosophers, priests, action, pleasure, pride, beat up and down, seeking to give satisfaction. He indicates the satisfaction and indicates that they beat up and also down. Whichever the sex, whatever the season or place, he may go freshly and gently and safely by day or by night. He has the passkeys of heart. To him, the response of prying of hands on the knobs. He is welcome. His welcome is universal. The flow of beauty is not more welcome or universal than he is. The person he favors by day or sleeps with at night is blessed. Every existence has its idiom. Everything has an idiom and its tongue. He resolves all tongues in his own and bestows it upon men. And any man translates, and any man translates himself also. One part does not counteract another part. He is the joiner. He sees how they join. He sees indifferently and alike. How are you, friend? And to the president, as is levy, he says, good day, my brother, to Cudge, that host in the sugar field. And both understand him and know that his speech is right. He walks with perfect ease in the Capitol. He walks among the Congress, and the one representative says to another, "Here is our equal appearing in new." Then the mechanics take him for a mechanic. The soldiers suppose him to be a captain, and the sailors that he has followed the sea. And the authors take him for another author, and the artist for an artist. And the laborers perceive he could labor with them and love them. No matter what the work is, that he is one to follow it or has followed it. No matter what the nation, that he might find his brothers and sisters there. The English believes he comes of their English stock. A Jew to the Jew he seems, a Russ to the Russ, usual and near, removed from none. Whoever he looks at in the traveler's coffee house claims him. The Italian or Frenchman is sure, and the German is sure, and the Spaniard is sure, and the island Cuban is sure. The engineer, the deckhand on the Great Lakes or on the Mississippi or St. Lawrence or Sacramento or Hudson or Delaware claims him. The gentlemen of perfect blood acknowledge his perfect blood. The insulter, the prostitute, the angry person, the beggar, see themselves in the ways of him. He strangely transmutes them. They are not vile any more. They hardly know themselves, they are so grown. You think it would be good to be the writer of melodious verses. Well, it would be good to be the writer of melodious verses. But what are verses beyond the flowing character you could have, or beyond beautiful manners and behavior, or beyond one manly or affectionate deed of apprentice boy, or old woman, or man that has been in prison or is likely to be in prison? So I want to thank you for letting me share a piece of what I love to read. If you're an author who wants to be on the show, or you just want your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast for more information. Thank you, and I'll talk to you next week. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening. And always, be kind and stay safe. Thank you.